Gotta get Jim to fix that. Welcome to Thursday night ticket TNT. We bring the boom to the bookies as it is. How's it going, Matt?
Going good.
So I know you're on today during the day. We're about half hour, not even 27 minutes away from big kickoff, and
should be Army in East Carolina, correct?
The hell East Carolina is Greensville, of course. Yeah, Army in East Carolina. I think we talked a little bit about the AAC. Navy's 3-0, North Texas 4-0, Memphis 4-0. These two teams are a little bit further down the list. Army obviously has been pretty good over the last couple of years. It's interesting with this game here. You just talk about this because I'm sure this isn't the biggest game on the docket this weekend. East Carolina is -3.5 in this game, and the matchup predictor says that East Carolina is 75% favorite, so those odds should be closer to like 10. Is that at all interesting to you?
It is interesting. I have a good buddy who went to West Point, graduated from there. So every time they're on, I like to root on the armed forces from time to time. But they win football games by pounding the rock and controlling the game, right? So if it's obvious that they have a beat on the option early, then it's probably going to be a long day for Army. And if Army's able to move the football and get a good push, then they have a good chance in any game they're playing. But the problem is that they're not going to out-athlete anybody because they can't recruit.
It's interesting. They took North Texas to overtime last week.
43, 45.
Yeah, yep. Yes. It's a weird line to me. Once again, 3.5 for East Carolina at home, obviously, but the matchup predictor was such a big difference towards. This matchup predictor isn't the be-all, end-all, obviously, because if it was, you'd never need to do all this stuff. But I think it's, to me, that's interesting. I may try to jump on this game a little bit and maybe.
So if I'm correct, and I don't know 100% positive, but I think what the matchup predictor does is I think it tries to funnel out all of the explosives and turnovers and stuff like that, things that don't necessarily carry over, and get you down to a much more basic like what is this football team? And if you take all of the explosive stuff out, this is who would likely win this match. Now the problem is that you can't in real football take out explosives and things like that and turnovers, and so that's I think that's part of the thing that factors in is just that time, the time element, because games against Army should go in theory a lot faster than a lot of other games just by the brand of football that they play. It also takes out a large element of those turnovers, which makes it more difficult to beat Army because in all likelihood, they're not going to beat themselves with turnovers.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But once again, look, kicks off in 25 minutes now, or a little bit less than that. It's not the biggest play on the board, but it's the game of the night on ESPN tonight, so we're going to talk about it. Let's get into some of these games on the weekend. Well, there's a couple ranked teams playing tomorrow night, obviously Florida State's playing Virginia. TCU's playing Arizona State. Houston's playing Oregon State. That TCU Arizona State game, we talked a lot about this at length last week. The Big 12, Arizona State with a massive, massive win over Baylor. Really just probably kick-started their season if they can then go on and beat TCU, who's still undefeated. Either of those two games interest you tomorrow night?
Yeah, both of them do. Florida State is more from a spot of this. I struggle. I don't think it's like your traditional trap game necessarily, but like scheduling wise, it's on a Friday, so you've not got your normal week of work. You're going on the road, and I don't care what people say. Going on the road, I don't think it matters really who you are or where you're going. You're never going to play as well on the road as you do at home. Like that just doesn't seem like it ever really truly correlates at a 1-to-1 rate. And Virginia's a solid team. There's a reason this line's inside of a touchdown. Right, but Florida State needs to go up there, handle their business, and get ready for Miami. They have a different draw than Miami. Miami has a bye week going into that Florida State game. Obviously, Florida State gets to play tomorrow against Virginia. And then as far as TCU and Arizona State go, this is like the pole position in the Big 12. Texas Tech has a pole position after what they did to Utah last weekend. TCU and Arizona State are teams that I would consider in that top tier of the Big 12. And so when you get matchups like this, especially early in the season, it gives you a really good insight as to what that Big 12 championship picture is going to look like this early on in the season, because tiebreakers matter in the Big 12, like more than any other conference. They're going to matter. And this one is big. And Arizona State, I like, but I still have questions about them as a whole, because they won that football game last week against Baylor by 3 points. They won the turnover battle by 3. Like, winning by 3 and winning the turnover battle by 3 feels like you got out of there you did get out of there by the skin of your teeth. There's no other way to slice that one up. The turnover battle goes your way. You got to win by more than one possession if you're a really good football team. And on the flip side, I said I like TCU to make the Big 12 championship earlier this year, and if they're going to do that, they have to win this football game. Josh Hoover's fantastic. I've raved about Sonny Dykes and what he's done at TCU and how everybody seems to have just forgotten that he was there. And this is a game that if you're TCU, you need to win. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is an Arizona State team. They've already tasted what defeat feels like this year. TCU's kind of cruised. This is like a true test of adversity on the road, because North Carolina wasn't adversity. I don't care that they were on the road. It was not adversity at all. They played nobody, and then they played SMU at home. This is a different kind of challenge for the Horned Frogs this week.
I'm just going through the Saturday slate here. Same thing. There's an early game with 2 ranked teams. There's a game at 3:30 with 2 ranked teams. And then, the nighttime is really where it's at. Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia. A couple big games. The early game with 2 ranked teams has a little bit of the luster taken off. Hey, Luke, say hi.
Hi.
As Illinois has to kind of rebound from a 77-point loss, or however many points they lost by last week. It was crazy, 63-10. We were out eating after I filmed some football, and I was watching it over there. And, it was like whatever it was, 35-10. And then I looked up and I looked down at my food and I looked up and it was like, 49-10. I'm like, what the hell happened? How did they score 2 touchdowns? And they just kept scoring and kept scoring. Indiana with a huge, huge statement game there. Illinois got to pick themselves off the ground here and take on USC, who's 4-0. Not as impressively 4-0 as some of these other teams, but they're already 2-0 in the conference, which sits them at top. Where do you think this goes?
I told when we did a little look ahead on Monday when I was talking with Jim, and Lincoln Riley came back and echoed the sentiments that I had outlined as why USC may be in a rough spot. Last week they got a late kick. They started at 10 on Saturday. And then you go across the country and you got to start at 12 on Saturday. Like it's not some insurmountable thing, but it's definitely not ideal. And yes. I don't remember what the numbers were, but there was some math that throughout the course of the season started to really, really pick up and have a track where these teams that were traveling cross country and playing these games, and more specifically, it was the East Coast teams headed to the West Coast. But regardless, both ways, it's a tough travel. And especially on what you would consider probably a little bit of a shorter week, just given the late start time on Saturday. and then how early you'd have to leave out in order to get over there and really get settled in for that 12 o'clock game on Saturday. It's going to be an odd week for USC, and Illinois got to pick themselves up and lick their wounds. Like, both of these teams feel like they're in odd positions, and when you feel like both teams may be slightly disadvantaged just based off the week prior, I tend to lean towards a team that I believe has a little more talent. And quite frankly, right now, that's USC based off what I saw last weekend. I mean, there's just Illinois lost a few key players on defense to injury last week against Indiana as well. I know they lost the turnover battle, and that was part of the reason that the score was so lopsided. But USC's offense looks really good, and their defense gives them a couple stops, though they should be fine because Luke Altmaier did not really inspire that offense or me to believe in that offense last week, especially after their highest scoring game against Duke, coming on the heels of a large turnover margin win as well.
It's interesting. I just want to remind people that we're 2 weeks out from Wednesday football games in the NCAA football, and we are 3 weeks out from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday games.
Yep.
Which is, once again, it's kind of insane, but it is what it is, and football bettors and football fans will rejoice.
Yep.
The big game at 3:30 is there might be a bigger game, but I don't know if you could argue that LSU number 4 against number 13 Ole Miss. Ole Miss, one of these teams that's always around the discussion, and at the end of the year, 3 losses or whatever it is, they always find themselves on the outside looking in. These are the kind of games that they need to win to be in the college football playoff at the end of the year. They're 4-0. They're at home. They're favored by 1.5 against LSU, who's really, really impressive. There's still some questions about, Brian Kelly in the offense or whatever with the press conference from the other day. This is down in your kind of territory here. What are your thoughts on this right now?
I started thinking a little more critically about LSU in the week leading up to the Florida game. And I slowly, towards the end of that week, started trending towards maybe picking Florida. I don't think ultimately I did, luckily, because DJ Lagway couldn't move the football. But it's not that I think LSU has a bad defense. That's not where I'm going with this. I'm just pumping the brakes on how great everybody thinks the LSU defense is right now, because currently the tests they have aren't really tests at all. You've got 2 non-P4 teams, and the 2 P4 teams that you have played, they can't move the ball on anybody. It doesn't matter who's on the other side of the football. They're unable to move it. Clemson has shown you that throughout, their 4 games thus far. And the same goes for Florida. Florida couldn't move it. It felt like they were lucky to score the 1 touchdown they did against Miami. These are 2 teams that are incapable of moving the football. And so all these conclusions that we drew about the LSU defense coming off of that week 1 win in Death Valley and coming off of that week 3 against Florida where they had 5 interceptions. I'm not saying that they're a bad unit. I think they're a really good unit. I think Blake Baker does a very good job. But I'm pumping the brakes on this all-world defense. And part of the reason that I'm pumping the brakes on it is because they don't have an offense to go with it right now. They haven't shown anything. You're going to have to score points in this game. It's the reason that, or straight away, I was like, man, Ole Miss is favored in this. I'm surprised. You go back and you watch what Trinidad Chambliss has done thus far. And you're like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of starting to get it. When Lane Kiffin gets a guy like Trinidad Chambliss has been a guy so far. He's been a guy more than Austin Simmons was. And I had a lot of belief in Austin Simmons, quite frankly, coming into the year. But Chambliss has just fit right in. He's fit the system, and he's worked at Ole Miss. And I think he's going to give the LSU defense problems. Brian Kelly on the road hasn't been fantastic at LSU. It's not Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, but he leaves a little bit to be desired thus far. And I'm taking Ole Miss in this game. I'm taking Ole Miss to cover.
Yeah, you know what? I'm inclined to agree with that. I think I just I'm not. I talked to my guy Keyshore once again, who's down there in Baton Rouge, and he's just been down on this team all year and down on Brian Kelly and just the way they've played. And I just think if Ole Miss scores 30 points in this game, is LSU going to be able to score 31 points? The way
No.
they've played against decent teams, probably not. So like this game is going to have to be, for them to win, maybe 24-20, or I don't even know if they can get to 24 points. It's interesting.
What I will say for LSU, at least on the offensive side of the football, as the season goes along, Garrett Nussmeier is working with a really new receiver room. And when you're working with a new receiver room, I get that you've got, all off season to get your reps in and stuff like that. But still getting some of that timing and feel down with those receivers can be difficult. And maybe it's something that he just doesn't have yet. You would think he'd still have it with Aaron Anderson, and they would have some form of a go-to target. But also that offensive line is causing some problems for LSU. Like they're not a fantastic unit. And when you're not clicking with the receivers and your run game can be a little shaky at times, and that offensive line doesn't necessarily hold up for you, then you start looking around and feel like the sky is falling because you wonder like what can we go to? Like we need a play here. What are we going to go to? Do we want to lean on this offensive line in the run game? Do we trust Garrett Nussmeier and these receivers to go make a play? And I don't think that they do, quite frankly, yet.
That brings us to the next game on my list here. One that you probably have a little bit of an interest in as well. 7:30. We skip through some of these games. 7:30. There's a bunch of big games. Obviously, it's on NBC and Peacock. Oregon, Penn State. Penn State. This guy. They have a lot of talent. He's a great recruiter. They never win a big game ever in the history of ever under James Franklin. Last year, I think people here were worried. People that not fans of Penn State were worried that, they had a path to walk to the title. And I said, let's slow your roll here. They'll blow it somewhere. And they did in the semis. It's a big game, I think, for them because if they beat Oregon, I think you could argue that they could jump up to 2 or 1. Penn State's favored by 3.5. They're at home. It's going to be under the lights. It's going to be dark. It's going to be crazy. What are your thoughts here on your alma mater?
Well, in terms of jumping up, I will say they may get a little help out west. Ohio State heads to Washington this week, and that's not an easy place to play. Washington has the second longest home winning streak in the country, behind Georgia. But in terms of Penn State, it feels like a game that James Franklin, quite frankly, needs. Like you go back to last year, and they made it to the Final Four, right, in the playoff. But then you look at the way they got there. They didn't beat Ohio State. They didn't have to beat Ohio State. That was fine. They didn't beat Oregon in the Big Ten title because they didn't have to. And you get to the playoff, and they beat SMU and they beat Boise. By far the weakest run of any team. And then you go and you lose to Notre Dame. So it doesn't like you made it to the Final Four, but in terms of a fan base, it doesn't really instill confidence in your ability to win big football games.
Correct.
And, people say that he can't do it. That's a lie. He's done it. You go back to 2016. He beat Ohio State, and he won the Big Ten championship. But that was 2016. That's almost a full decade ago now. Like it's time to do it since the calendar turned over to the 2020s. It's time to win in this decade now. Like I don't care how close he's been because he was close a lot. He was really close a lot. But close doesn't count right now. It's not going to knock him out of the college football playoff if they lose this football game. But it's going to knock a lot of confidence out of the fan base. And all you're going to hear about up until that Ohio State game and even into that Ohio State game is how they can't win a big game, especially not on the road. They need Drew Allar to play well. But what I will say is people have billed Oregon, and Oregon has looked really good for a lot of the season. But Oregon took a trip to Evanston the other week, and they started really slow. like really slow. It was a sloppy game at Northwestern for Oregon for a half of football. And people forget that this is Dante Moore's first full season at a starting quarterback. This is his first season starting anywhere. Like, they have the talent, but it's not established talent. Penn State has established talent, like that they brought back, and they should have a sense of continuity. And I would assume that this is the vibe, but I think the Penn State fans, quite frankly, need to understand kind of what state this program is in right now and feel the urgency. And it's a whiteout, and they love a whiteout, and they finally get it for a big game in what feels like forever because Big Noon Kickoff has been stealing all the good ones for God knows how long.
Do you know what his record is against top 10 teams?
His record, I believe, is what is it? It's like, I think he's only won like twice.
I think it's 3-17.
Yeah,
I thought it was 2-19, but it's 3-17.
Yeah,
against top 5 teams, it's terrible. He's got one win all time. He's terrible again. Terrible in big games.
Yeah, he's not good at this. But like,
they got to, at some point, Penn State at some point, because they have, they got Oregon and they got Ohio State. Indiana, I don't know where they're going to be ranked by the time they play them. But, they should beat Indiana anyway. Mm-hmm. But you got Oregon, you got Ohio State. You got 2 chances this year to beat a decent team. Then you got, the rest of the schedule: Villanova, UCLA, Iowa, Michigan State, Rutgers. Like, you're not losing those games. They're going to be in the playoff. Well, if they lose to Oregon and Ohio State and are 10-2, I don't know. You could probably make the argument they shouldn't be in the playoff, but they're probably going to get in. But, if they win one of them, they're a lock to get in. If they win one and lose one, it's a lock they're going to get in. But it's just at some point you gotta win a big game. I'm not sold on this quarterback either. I don't know. I'm not. They got him listed as a top 5 pick. I don't know about that. Every time I watch him play, against Notre Dame, I thought he was terrible. He manages the game or whatever. I don't think he's a guy that's going to go into the NFL and change a franchise. I mean, you see these guys now that are struggling, Stroud and Mark Eccles' story from today. I mean, these quarterbacks that are struggling, I don't know that he's better than any of those guys. But I just, I don't know. I mean, are you taking Penn State in this game, or is it you taking Oregon?
I'm taking Penn State. I'm really counting on that home field advantage, quite frankly. I think it can't be noted, like I talk about it all the time when I'm talking about Georgia, and specifically in the lead up to that Tennessee game, where people were like, well, they struggled against Austin Peay. Yeah, they were testing some stuff out. Like, you're working on what you're not good at. So when you look at those games against, Cupcake North, Cupcake West, and Cupcake South, like, Penn State was probably working on some stuff. They're probably keeping stuff off film that they don't want on film. Like, you're not showing a large bag of tricks by any means. They need to have some stuff. And if they can get a lead in this game, a 7, if they get a 10-point lead in this game, I don't think there's any way that Penn State loses this football game. I think people forget like what the whiteout truly is when it's a big game. Like, they've had
last week. Well, when did Georgia play Tennessee? 2 weeks ago, right?
2 weeks ago, yeah.
You took Georgia, correct?
Correct.
Why?
I took Georgia.
Always beat Tennessee, right?
No, I believed in the physicality of Georgia, and I believed in those secondary players that Tennessee was missing mattering, right? And so those were really the reasons. And I mean, in all fairness to Tennessee, on that last drive of the game in that football game, they leaned on Georgia. Like Tennessee maintained the physicality. Ultimately, some big throws from Gunnar Stockton won Georgia that football game. So the secondary did matter. But I picked it for the physicality. And the same, like, there's a certain level of continuity that Penn State has that Oregon doesn't have. And when you don't have that continuity, like when you go back and you watch the Tennessee game for Georgia, and the reason that Georgia has no false starts is because they made things simple. Like, you don't see motion in that Georgia offense that would lead to false starts and stuff. Like, I don't think Oregon has that luxury to go up there and take their playbook apart and then break it back down and simplify it. Like, I don't think they have that ability against Penn State. because talent-wise, I think Penn State goes body for body with them, quite frankly. Like they have two of the best running backs in the country. Everybody seems to forget that. Like the talent that they brought back is talent that should win you a championship. And I'm pretty much just picking Penn State purely off of the belief of what they should be.
And there's another big game at 7:30. Alabama at Georgia. Going to be interesting atmosphere there, I would think, as well in Athens, down the street from you. It's clearly a must-win game for Alabama already early in the season. I mean, if Alabama goes to 2-2, I think they're in a lot of trouble already. And Georgia, coming off, they had a bye last week after that overtime win, so they're rested. So is Alabama, but it's a massive game for Alabama, correct?
For both. Like this is for as much as like the stakes of this season matter for Alabama in this game. This game matters like it, and I think it matters for the guys in that locker room too. But the fans, they're tired of Alabama. Georgia got the national championship over them, and that's one that they'll always have. Like they beat them on the biggest stage, hoorah! But in terms of like every other matchup that hasn't been that 2021 national championship, Alabama's won. Like Kirby Smart can't seem to get the Alabama monkey off of his back. They lost last year. Everybody thought when Nick Saban left, they're like, well, now it's Kirby's world. We're all just living in it. And then Kalen DeBoer beats them at home. Well, now you get them at home. Like this is Kirby Smart's first time playing Alabama in Athens. And I know there's a lot of Georgia fans that are upset by that. It's the way the schedule works. Cry me a river. I don't care anymore. They're breaking out the blackout, which, last time they broke out the blackout for Alabama was in 2008. And that can, really bring back some PTSD for a lot of people down south, specifically in the state that I live. I think that was an interesting choice by the fans and the students mainly. But like for this game, I can give you all the build up and stuff like that. But the simple matter of the fact is that when people come home and they sit down to turn on their TV for the 7:30 game, they're not scrolling over to Peacock. They're taking it on over to ABC because these two brands are playing a football game. And every time these two get together, doesn't matter what the circumstance is, you know what you're getting. You know the type of football that you're getting. And I expect nothing less on Saturday. There's no more build up or billing. It doesn't matter what number's next to Alabama's name. It doesn't matter what number's next to Georgia's name right now. You know what those two programs are and what they stand for. And now, come Saturday, it's time to kick the other one's teeth in and see who wants it a little more. And Alabama, under Kalen DeBoer, I think the record's 2-6 on the road. This is the toughest road test they're going to face. With all due respect to Florida State, they have nothing on what Athens, Georgia is going to be like on a Saturday night in a blackout. I like Georgia doesn't do the same. They don't get the same buildup as the whiteout for Penn State. But this atmosphere, I was there in 22 against Tennessee when they were ranked number 1 in the country. There's like it's second to none when the Georgia fans actually decide to show up. Kirby Smart's had a quarrel with them all season, like in his press conferences all season. He's been like, man, really like the fans to show up, really like the fans to show up. And I tell you what, he's not going to have to ask the fans to show up on Saturday night. They know what's at stake, and they want to beat this team just about more than they want to beat any of the other rivals left on their schedule.
Georgia wins?
Yes.
I tend to agree with that. The line under field goal too. I like that line a little bit. Is there any other before we this game gets ready to kick off here at the top of the hour, or the bottom of the hour? Is there any other games you're kind of focusing on before we head to the NFL?
One, it was in the at the 12 o'clock window. You have Notre Dame going to Arkansas.
Okay.
The initial meeting of this was scheduled for 2020. That obviously got canceled. So Notre Dame heads down to Arkansas. Notre Dame's got to win this football game. And for as much as Notre Dame has to win this football game, Arkansas also has to win this football game because Sam Pittman's job is like on the brink, doesn't even feel like it does it justice for how close Sam Pittman is to losing his job over there at Arkansas, it feels like.
He's probably 2 plays from being 4-0 at this point, and they're 2-2. They lost by a point to Memphis and 6 to Mississippi, so they've been in every game.
But that's what like both of those games, they found ways to lose. They didn't find ways to win. Specifically the Memphis game as well. So it's really more the fashion that they lost those football games. Like has people like not believing in Sam Pittman, because those are football games, situations where you are in a winnable spot and you found a way to lose it. Like I said, specifically Memphis. And for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, like their goal is playoff. After the standard that they set last year, Notre Dame's standard is the playoff. It's from here on out for as long as Marcus Freeman is head coach, and the playoff is what the playoff is, which is, a bajillion teams. Notre Dame's standard is the playoff. Right now, they're not in a playoff spot. Like they have to win out, and they need help from the teams on their schedule to give them a little more meat on the bone. It starts in Arkansas, because this isn't a gimme. Like Notre Dame's favored by 4.5, which
I think that's a tough spot for Notre Dame, to be honest. I mean, because Arkansas is playing for their lives too. I mean, I think that's a tough spot for them. I'm not sure, how I don't want to say how tough or whatever, but like I just I think that's going to be the same type of game that Arkansas has been in the last 2 weeks, the last 3 weeks. I mean, I think it's going to be a close game, and it's going to be a play or two here that changes it one way or the other.
Yeah, and like the Notre Dame got to the national championship last year, not because Riley Leonard and Jaden Greathouse and Jeremiah Love and these guys were scoring 50 points a game. No one could score on Notre Dame. The defense was ridiculous. Amazing.
Yep.
Like I think Gunnar Stockton had the most passing yards against Notre Dame in the playoffs last year, and he threw for like 208 yards.
The biggest takeaway from the final when Ohio State won is that, man, they moved the ball against Ohio. Like no one thought Ohio State was going to be able to move the ball. Like Notre Dame's defense was phenomenal last year, and they just they've fallen off a cliff.
It left when Lou Anarumo went to Cincinnati. Like Chris Ash can say what he wants. Like he gets up to the podium, and I'm sure that the agreements with Marcus Freeman and everything are in place. Something's off in that defense, because like it's not like they lost. Like they lost a good bit of talent. But on the back end specifically, Christian Gray and Leonard Moore are two of the best corners in the country. Were two of the best corners last year in the country. I've seen them get beat on multiple occasions. I think it was Christian Gray get beat by a Purdue receiver last week on a post route. It's like, what has happened with this defense, and where does it go? Because Taylon Green is one of the better quarterbacks in the country. Like he can expose this defense. And so if they don't come ready to play, they can get beat in Arkansas.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a real. It's at 12 o'clock. It's a really, really interesting game early. So as this game gets ready to kick off here, we turn our attention to the NFL, and we have a game kicking off in about 40 minutes, maybe a little less than that. Seattle, Arizona. Arizona was so close to being 3-0 here, and now the Seahawks, who have a 7-game winning streak against the Cardinals, come into Arizona on Thursday Night Football in Prime. And, both these teams are trailing San Francisco in the division. San Francisco's dealing with some injuries. But both these teams have a chance to get to 3-1 before the weekend. We've talked at length about, Arizona's path here. They really should be, 4-2, 5-1 by the end of their first 6 games. Seattle's looked, pretty interesting here early on. They smoked New Orleans. They beat Pittsburgh after that real close loss to San Francisco. Both have real close losses to San Francisco. 4 points and 1 point. What are you're intrigued by this game? Matchup predictors really even. I actually think this is going to be a pretty interesting game. The Thursday night games for me have been really kind of where it's been at, comparatively to, comparing against, Monday night games. Although, Monday night this week we got 2 games, and I think next week as well.
You didn't love that thriller on Sunday night last weekend?
What's that?
So you didn't love that thriller on Sunday night last weekend? Giants and the Chiefs?
Fell asleep. You know what? It was 9-6 Kansas City, and I'm like, man. Like,
you didn't miss him.
I said, there's no way that Kansas City can play as poorly as they did in the second half. I bet Kansas City at halftime, to win by whatever it was, 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
You kind of thought there's no way. I mean, and nothing. I mean, the Monday night game has been was fantastic. The primetime games have been pretty good. The Monday night games this week, the Jets at Miami at 7:15 and Cincinnati at Denver at 8:15. They're not great. Denver's and Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But I think this Thursday night game is actually I'm pretty interested to watch it. I think it'll be an entertaining game.
I'm really interested to see how Trey Benson steps in. James Conner's out for the season now for Arizona.
Yep.
He's going to step in and be their number one back, their workhorse now. So I'm curious to see how that looks. This Arizona offense has got to get going. Like they've got to find the Marvin Harrison Jr. that was at Ohio State. I don't know where that guy's been, and I don't know how they're going to find him, but they need to. Like they need a weapon because as good as Trey McBride has been, man, you got to have another option. And right now you're on running back 2. And you don't have like that go-to guy at receiver right now. Marvin Harrison Jr. has to step up and be that go-to guy. I think he's been better this year thus far, but he still hasn't been what he was projected to be when they picked him a couple of years ago. And for the Seahawks, I'm really surprised in the real lack of drop-off they've had so far. I think people expected Sam Darnold to go up to Seattle and return to the old form of Sam Darnold and not what we saw in Minnesota. And so far he hasn't. He's looked pretty good. And they've won, they won against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, that was a good win, going over to Pittsburgh, getting that win. Now you can talk about the special teams blunders and whatever. And then winning, they took care of business against the Saints. That's what the Saints are this season. You've got to go take care of business against the Saints because that's the way their roster's built. And they did that. They've done their job so far. And it felt like the Cardinals, not that I think they should have necessarily, it was like a 1-point spread in favor of 49ers last week. So it's not like a game they were like, oh, yeah, the Cardinals are going to win this game. But it felt like if you were going to get one, it's going to be when they're on their backup quarterback. Like the 49ers aren't at full strength right now. And so I think not getting that, at least in terms of my expectations for the Cardinals, it feels a tad bit disappointing. But all in all, this is going to be a great game. Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to show up
very good
the same way he does, every week. So it's going to be interesting because Kyler, this is Kyler's year. This is the make or break year.
Yep.
He has to perform this year. Otherwise, they're going a different direction in Arizona.
There's a first international game. There's a bunch of international games this year. I looked through it today during the day with Mark Eckel. This one is at Croke Park in Dublin. Great stadium, by the way. Minnesota at Pittsburgh. Both teams come in 2-1. Another couple battles of 2-1 teams. McCarthy is either injured or benched. No one's quite sure which one is which. It didn't. I don't think it really mattered because Carson Wentz was probably going to be the starting quarterback anyway after last week. It's interesting. Both teams, Steelers picked up a big win at New England. The Vikings absolutely destroyed Cincinnati 48-10. And then the Vikings actually stay over in England, I believe, after the game because they play next week at Tottenham Stadium. Mm-hmm. So back-to-back games in Europe, which is, I guess that gives them an advantage next week. But it's an interesting, another interesting. I think week 4 there's a bunch of games that are really intriguing, and the lines are tight. Minnesota's 2.5. Washington, Atlanta, and the 1 o'clock. Washington -1.5. Carolina at New England 5.5. The Chargers are coming out here to play the Giants. Obviously the biggest game at 1 o'clock is Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. Although I guess maybe you could argue that, Houston, Tennessee could be big for Houston because, if they go 0-4 with a loss to Tennessee, I think that's the end of that. But
Yeah.
of these early games here, which one or two kind of obviously the Eagles and Tampa Bay, but is there any other one that kind of sticks out?
Yeah, setting the Eagles and Tampa Bay aside, I look at the Commanders and Falcons. The Commanders are favored by 1.5. The Falcons are at home. That's interesting to me. With the Commanders, are they still on Marcus Mariota? Is Jaden Daniels going to play? Well, I just saw the headline on Jaden
Up
Daniels.
to the doctors, not my decision.
Yep, that is correct. So if he doesn't play, it'd be a tough look if Atlanta were to lose to their former backup quarterback, Marcus Mariota, at home. But Atlanta lost by 30 to Carolina last Sunday. Like there's no way around it. It was a full and total failure on every side of the football for Atlanta last Sunday.
How the hell do you lose 30-0 to the Panthers?
30, like the Panthers aren't that 30-0 win didn't change anything anybody thought about the Panthers. Everybody still thinks the Panthers are going to be what they thought they were going to, which is going to be, maybe they'll win 4 or 5 games and they're not going to make the playoffs. They're going to be drafting high again, right? It did change though what people thought about Atlanta after what they did in Minnesota the weekend before. Like this is a team that's built to win this division. Like that is the expectation for the Atlanta Falcons coming into this year. You've drafted in the top 10 4 years in a row, potentially more than that, but I just remember they picked 8th like 4 years in a row, if I remember correctly. It's Penix, Bijan, London, and Pitts, all 4 of them. So like you've built this team to win. They spent their draft capital in the past on the offense. They spent it this year on the defense. And you go and you give up 30. And what does Michael Penix have to say this week when talking about his performance? He said, I got to throw it to the receivers when they're open. Like that doesn't – it's not doing anything.
Thanks, my guy.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Is that your job?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I will say I saw something on I think it was a podcast with Zach Klein, who works for WSB down here in Atlanta. He was talking to Matt Ryan, asking about like a quarterback competition. And I don't know what's going on in that Atlanta building right this second. If there's a quarterback competition, then whoever's in charge over there, I don't know. They need GM out, coach out. Like if you're running a competition with your quarterback after he started 6 games and just had 1 bad start, I would go easy on the Panthers, but they're a really bad football team. Sorry, Fred.
Fred, Eckel picked the Panthers to be one of the most improved teams this year. And, Panthers are going to New England this week and have a chance to get to 2-2. And while Atlanta here, if they're struggling, look, the Bucs are going to win the division. I think that's pretty clear at this point. Who's going to finish second? The Panthers, if they play like they did last week, maybe they win 6 or 7 games. Well, it's early, Fred. It's early, but they look better than they did last year.
I don't think last week is a result of like the Panthers coming in and like having this fantastic game plan and exit. Like the Falcons looked off.
Falcons are terrible.
They looked off. Like this is an offense that you expect to produce when you spend the kind of draft capital that they have. I'm going to keep harping on it for as long as they have those guys on the roster. Like this was built to be an explosive offense. Right now, you're not. Like I can tell you that wholeheartedly. I have Drake London on my fantasy football team, and he has been a liability thus far. Like considered benching him. So the Falcons, they have to go out and win this football game. I feel like I use have so much, but it just feels like a spot where you need to bounce back. How do you respond to that adversity? What does your team makeup look like? Because right now it doesn't look very good, to be honest with you. The way you lose week 1, I get that you came back and you had a really nice win week 2 in Minnesota, and then you pair week 1's result with week 3, and boy, do I have some questions about the way things are going right now in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's interesting as you get a text here from somebody asking the question. Obviously the Eagles and Tampa Bay, massive game. And we'll just hold that for a second. Some of these other games, Cleveland last week, what can you say about the collapse of Green Bay? And we'll get to them because they play at night. But Cleveland goes to Detroit now. You got to think that's a tough game after the way Detroit played for them. The Chargers, can they come out here and win? They for real? A lot of people think they are. But Houston and Tennessee. I mean, should Houston be favored by 8 points against anybody at this point? I mean, I just don't know. I mean, I don't know how good. I don't know how good their offense is. I don't know how good CJ Stroud is. They've only scored 38 points. I mean, their defense has played great. They gave up 14 points, 20 points, and 17 points, and they're 0-3. The Titans, I know, struggled. They got blown out. I thought they played well against Denver first week. I don't know how good Denver is though. But should the Texans be favored by 8 points against anybody at this point?
No. No. I will say I'm curious to see if the Texans can't get things righted on offense. They started to make a shift, and they didn't make a full shift yet, but they started to make a shift to Woody Marks at running back. And for as much as I grew up, when I was growing up, I loved Nick Chubb. He was a fantastic running back at Georgia. He did a fantastic job with the Cleveland Browns, but he suffered a handful, two off the top of my head. I think it's actually 3. I'm just having trouble remembering because it feels like they happen so frequently. Gruesome, is this guy going to come back type injuries? And he came back, and I hoped that he would pan out in Houston. Things have not looked good. Woody Marks got around 40% of the snap share, I believe it was, last weekend in the backfield. And so they've started to make that change. So if they can get a little more faith in that run game, because it's what I talked about when they lost to Tampa Bay. It was that drive inside of the one where you got 3 plays and you run the football one time. That's an inexcusable way to call that football game. Or it's inexcusable to have a run game that you believe in that little. So if they can get more balance on offense, I think things will start to click a little bit. But for as much as that matters, CJ Stroud's got to play better. Plain simple, I don't care what the run game looks like. I know your offensive line has been fantastic. You still have to play better. Where did you go? Because you balled out your rookie season. You came out year 2, didn't have as good a year. Okay, that's fine. Sophomore slump. They talk about it all the time, whatever. It wasn't fantastic, but surely, year 3, they're going to come back. CJ Stroud's going to be CJ Stroud. He hasn't been. Something's got to change in Houston because right now, an 0-3 start with that roster, and more importantly, that defense is unacceptable.
Yeah, I think I don't think Tennessee, I don't think Tennessee wins the game. I wouldn't be, would I be stunned if they won? I don't know. I don't know how good Houston is, but, a lot of people, Mark picked them to go to the Super Bowl when he was on here first week and then talked about some of these, some of the play and the quarterback the last couple of weeks in his columns that you can read on Sports Talk Florida and a bunch of other places. Let's get to this Eagles-Tampa game. Sports Talk Florida will be there in the house. There's going to be a bunch of stories up all over Sports Talk sites with this, about this game. They list Mayfield as questionable. You got to imagine that he played in 2022 with couldn't lift his left arm. You got to imagine he's going to play in this game. It's a big game for seeding in the NFC. The Eagles already, miracle cover last week. Not only did they win that game, but they covered. Right now, you got the Eagles at 3-0, San Francisco at 3-0, Tampa at 3-0, Green Bay's 2-1, Washington's 2-1. The Rams are 2-1. Those are probably the teams that everyone thinks are going to be in the playoffs at some point. Maybe the Vikings, the Lions 2-1. But it's a massive game, and the Eagles are favored on the road. Probably, rightly. But the Eagles have had a little luck in their games. If you can kind of say that. They've 24-20, 20-17, 33-26. They haven't really blown teams out like they did in some points. What are your thoughts on this game? To Tampa almost blew that game last week too. So
Yeah, Tampa, I think people were like Tampa's been pretty lucky as well.
yes,
I will say I don't think
29, 27, 2019 to
yeah.
3 wins by 6 total points.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would call the win in Houston necessarily lucky because like you had to drive down the football field.
Yes,
Like
yes.
that's one thing, but like the Falcons missing that field goal, luck, like the way things went against the Jets. Obviously, you had that one in the bag, but you still like you gave it up. You gave it up. Like you came back and you won, good for you, but you did give it up. Both of these teams are demonstrating week in and week out that good teams know how to win football games. So these are two good teams. The thing that I look at, and like I'm sitting here staring at it, Tristan Wirfs questionable. Heck is questionable at tackle. Evans doubtful. Godwin questionable. But I mean, if Godwin comes back, I would question what his production would be in the first place. Like right now, in terms of your weapons, Emeka Egbuka is your guy on the outside. Sterling Shepard's probably going to get some good touches, and then you go to the tandem of backs, right? So where does their offense come from? Because as you watch that Philadelphia Eagles and Rams game last week, the Eagles, especially the interior of that defensive line, and Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, they're starting to get it. Like you can tell they're starting to get their legs under them and play better. And when both of those guys are good, they create one of the best run defenses, if not the best run defense, at least from the interior of the defensive line in the NFL. Like they have that kind of impact on the run game and the bodies that they command when it comes to run blocking assignments. So it feels like a game that the Eagles should win.
I was gonna say I think that if Tampa was healthy, I would probably pick Tampa here. But the way
you give me one receiver and one tackle, like you give me Wirfs and Evans back this week at full strength, and
I would probably pick them, but I just think the way it is right now, they're banged up. I do think these two teams will play down the road in the playoffs.
Probably.
Obviously got to be on the same side bracket, but I think both of these teams are going to be deep into the playoffs. But I would go with the Eagles here. I think they're the better team right now. Now, once again, if there was some more injuries, and it's interesting, the line went down a little bit. It opened 3.5 and went down to 2.5. So that's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
The four there's once again 2 405 and 2 425. And there's some really, once again, I mean, the schedule makers, I think, they've been knocking out these games, the late games specifically, because, last week, the late games were great. Indianapolis at the Rams, man, what a big game. What a big chance for Indianapolis to go 4-0 and really beat a good team. Obviously Los Angeles favored by 3.5 there. We'll see how good Indianapolis is. Jacksonville at San Francisco. San Francisco's dealing with some injuries. Jacksonville, I don't know. Maybe Trevor Lawrence is back. Who knows? Baltimore at Kansas City. Both these teams at 1 and 2. They're talking about who needs to win more. We haven't seen both these teams at 1 and 2 in a long time. And then Chicago at Las Vegas. The Bears 1 and 2, Vegas 1 and 2. And I think it's a big game for both those teams. Just once again, I think 4 really good games and 4 really tight lines. I mean, Rams minus 3.5, San Francisco minus 3.5, Baltimore minus 2.5 at Kansas City, which I find interesting, and then Las Vegas minus 1.5. Just what are your thoughts on these games?
Well, this is where I'll start, just because, as you said it, I caught it and I was curious. What would inspire you to have the Chiefs favored? What have they shown you this year that would be favored over the Baltimore Ravens right now?
I don't think you probably, I don't think they should be. I get, like, it's just weird. It's just,
yeah, it feels like it's weird seeing 1 and 2 next to both of those teams right now, right?
I don't think Kansas City's that good.
No, their offense has been anemic. They don't have a run game. Like they don't. Pacheco has been terrible. Kareem Hunt is slow. Like Kelsey's dropping passes. Who do they have? They have Tyquan Thornton on the outside. Are they just going to pray that they just keep getting PIs and Tyquan Thornton keeps making catches that, quite frankly, he's never made in his career, like over and over again? Is that their offense right now until Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy come back? So, like, they feel so one-dimensional and just stuck in the mud on offense right now.
They have a brutal schedule, too. They have a brutal schedule. Like, we've talked about this. Their schedule is brutal. Like, if they get to 1-3, I'm not sure they dig out of this. Like, maybe they get to 9-8 and, whatever. It's very, very tough to say that because they've been so good for so long. But, the Super Bowl losers curse, they've shown, and maybe they're getting a little older. I don't know. Maybe they're just, their injuries or all this stuff. They played a lot of extra games over the years. They've had to get rid of some players, whatever. I just don't think they're that good. That's it. It's an interesting, game. But yeah, Baltimore probably should be favored in that game.
Yeah. Well, what I'll say in terms of the Chiefs and like when things can start looking up, Rashee Rice is out for 6 weeks with his suspension, right? And it looks like Xavier Worthy's starting to get a little more healthy, trending towards returning sooner rather than later. But like once this team gets some weapons on the outside, I would be remiss to count out Patrick Mahomes for an entirety of a season, especially if like I feel like the front office is smart enough to see it and be like, hey, this running back room isn't working, and go out and try to find anybody. Just like, even if you go to the third stringer, I don't remember who the third stringer is. Like, you got to try something out because both of them are really bad right now. But so I would be remiss to count them out right now. But man, this feels like a game the Ravens really should win because they can just outscore them.
Yeah. I think that's probably. I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to score enough points to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts and the Chargers, the Colts and the Rams, to me, out at SoFi, is really interesting. Once again, Indianapolis has been very impressive, and just everything. This guy Daniel Jones has been reborn there, and he's done everything that you've asked him, and Jonathan Taylor and Pittman's been good, and they're just they're really good right now. And once again, they have a chance. Both teams, Indianapolis and Jacksonville, with everyone, Houston and Tennessee, both 0-3 in that division, both go out west and have chances to really lay a marker down early in the season. The Rams are a really good team. They went toe to toe with the Eagles last week, and look, they lined up to kick the winning field goal twice, and then ended up not covering somehow. Like I don't know how you end up not covering on that, with all that stuff. But man, I think it's a tough spot for the Colts. But for the Colts, I think it's a game where you're like, listen, we don't have anything to lose here. Let's go out there and see what we can do. And see if we can get a big win, right? I mean, is that? I think there's going to be some points scored in this game.
So,
I know that.
So, how many wins do the teams that the Colts have played have?
I'll give Denver 1, Miami 0.
The teams they beat have a combined 1 win. So, like. You're a leverage penalty away from, I think, having a little bit different optics.
Well, the Rams have 2 wins against winless teams.
Yeah,
Tennessee and Houston.
But here's what I saw it phrased earlier. This is what I'm saying though: is say that the leverage penalty isn't called.
Yes, right? Yeah, they lose the
game, and the field goal isn't blocked. And the field goal isn't blocked last week. What are the optics and what's your point spread on this game? I guarantee it looks a little.
The Rams are favored by 7.5.
Yeah,
6.5.
So honestly, it feels like a place where you're probably getting a little value on the Rams, all things considered. This is the Colts' toughest test, and they're going on the road too. Like, you're going cross country on the road. So this is like, for as much as like, oh, the Colts, like, look at Daniel Jones report, go prove it to me in LA.
Yeah, I love it. I like the Rams a lot in this game. I'll bet them down at 2.5. I like them a lot. I'll put them in all my parlays. I think,
Yeah.
Jacksonville at San Francisco. I think Jacksonville's got a good spot there with the quarterbacks banged up for San Francisco. Jacksonville's got a really big chance there to go 3-1. The late game is Green Bay at Dallas.
I will just before we move on to Green Bay and Dallas, I will throw this one. I see the over under in Chicago and Vegas is 47.5. They're playing in Vegas, so you got a dome. You're playing on turf, and these are two of the worst passing defenses in the NFL. Like, if it weren't for Dallas, I think they would be the bottom two. Like, that's how bad they are. So it feels like a spot where points will be scored over there in Vegas. But
I agree. There's going to be some points. I feel like those later games usually are ones with the fireworks. Green Bay at Dallas. Look, Green Bay. I'll tell you a story. I'm tutoring, and they had the Eagles game on, and I'm watching it, and I was just like, I watched the block and then run it back. I'm like, they covered. I'm watching my bets, and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing all right. I go out to my car like 15 minutes later, and I look, and all my bets are like, all my parlays are done. I'm like, what the hell? And Green Bay was up 10-0 with like 4 minutes ago. Like, what? Wait, they lost? Like, what? Like, I was like, maybe they didn't cover as 10-9 or they lost. I'm like, what the hell happened? And like, it's just how do you lose that game? Like, for a team that a lot of people think is going to win, the Super Bowl or make the Super Bowl, be an NFC power. All of a sudden, how do you bounce back from that? The best way to bounce back is to go out and drop Dallas or, get a win on the road on Sunday night. But, once again, Dallas didn't look great. So, Green Bay here, 6.5. A lot of people are saying, it seems like a lot of points, but the way the Cowboys played last week, I guess it's probably about right.
You pair that with I haven't seen the official injury report, but I'm assuming that CeeDee Lamb is out with some sort of a high ankle sprain, and that will be some form of a significant injury, just time-wise, probably like 6 weeks if I had to guess.
He's doubtful. Booker's doubtful. DeMarvion Overshawn is on the PUP list. Baby's injured reserve. Perry and Winfrey's injured reserve. So
you've got a lot of injuries. And any injury to the defensive side of the football is bad right now because they just can't play defense like at all. I don't like they've stopped no one. They didn't stop the Giants. They didn't stop the New York Giants. Like, they ran up and down the field on the Cowboys in Jerry World. Like, I don't care how many weapons the Packers are out of. It does not matter. They should be able to run up and down the football field. And I go back to last week because we've talked about how good the Packers defense is, and my mind wasn't changed by that last week. Like the defense still looked like the defense should. The only problem is that it doesn't matter how good your defense is. If your offense doesn't give you anything all game, eventually that defense is going to crack, and that's exactly what happened. At the end of the game, that defense cracked.
Yep. Yeah, and Parsons is going to be ready to go and kind of I don't, not that he has to prove anything, but I just I don't know, Green Bay. I think Green Bay probably wins that game pretty easily. The two Monday night games, I don't even want to talk about the Jets and Miami. It's probably an interesting game. I mean, because they're both 0-3, and the Dolphins actually, they did play pretty well last week. So did the Jets, but the Dolphins the week before against New England as well, weren't terrible defensively. They're not very good. So it could be an interesting game. Miami's 2.5. Cincinnati at Denver. Denver, that Colts game, I actually think kind of tanked their season a little bit. The expectations for me right now with the Broncos aren't great. I think they win maybe 9 or 10 games at most. But they're playing Cincinnati at home. And, I don't know who's Jake Browning or whoever's going to throw the ball. Bo Nix stinks too, but we'll see.
The Broncos should win that football game. I mean,
they should, but
I'm defense, and I mean, the Bengals looked awful against the Vikings. Like you just turn on that Vikings tape and you go, okay, like this is what we're gonna do. Like this is the way we're gonna attack. Jamar Chase just hasn't gotten going for the Bengals yet. Like it hasn't happened. I don't know if it will happen with Jake Browning at quarterback. And like again, I go back to you need the right trigger man. It doesn't matter the pieces that you have. Like is Jake Browning the trigger man that's going to get Chase Brown to average more than 2 yards a carry? Is that going to magically change? I don't know. The Broncos have to win that football game. Just where they're like they lost. Their 2 losses are it was a good game last weekend against the Chargers, and they lost on a leverage penalty that didn't have an impact in the game, but it lost them the game anyways. A week earlier to the Colts. Like that's where you're at if you're the Chargers or if you're the Broncos. Like they were right there in front of them. They just didn't get it done when they needed to. But now you've got one that feels like a layup. Like you have to go get this one. And in terms of the Miami and New York game, somebody's got to win. So that's a plus.
I actually, to be honest, like if you're just like a neutral and you're like, oh man, there's 2 football games on tonight, like probably the Jets and Miami will probably be the more interesting game. I mean, it could be.
You feel like points are going to be scored in that game. You don't feel like points are going to be scored in Denver.
Yeah, like I mean, if I was a neutral, I'd say I'll probably watch the Jets in Miami. I think there's a chance it's going to be, it's 38-35 or I don't know. It could be 13-10. Who knows? But like I just feel like it's probably a better game to watch.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Miami at -2.5. I'm not betting either game. I don't think.
No,
but,
yeah. No. Misery loves company. So who doesn't want to see 2 0-3 teams, duke it out on Monday night? See who can come away with that prize to win that isn't going to help anybody's job security unless, I mean, like, let me rephrase that. Aaron Glenn's in no trouble. This is his first year. If Mike McDaniel loses this game, boy, does that seat get real hot, like real hot. Not that it's not warm already, but, man, that thing, he might as well just be sitting on the eye of the stove if they lose that football game.
This is the first of there's a 4-week stretch. It's this week, week 6 and week 7, where there's 2 games on Monday night. They're playing, the game October 20th are the 2 games that's 7 and 10 at least. These 2 are 7, 15, 8. I don't know why they're doing it. Like
I would assume it's a part of the new deal that the NFL has with ESPN. Because who didn't love turning on the 7 p.m. Monday Night Football game, and when it finished at 10,
if you have it, but play 7 and 10 then. Like why are you gonna play 7, 15, and 8? Like it just doesn't make any sense. Why are you going up against
the thing with the 10 o'clock is nobody on a Monday night wants to watch like take this like, for instance.
Yeah, nobody on the East. Yeah, it's a West Coast game. Yeah, it's a West Coast game.
Hey, let's turn the Broncos on at 10 p.m. I can't wait to stay up till 1 a.m. and go to work.
It's 100% a West Coast game. It's throw a bone to the West Coast, but 100%. I mean, it's crazy. So it is.
I don't get the 2 games on Monday night. It feels like a really dumb model. Like I'm not a fan. Like Super Wild Card Weekend on ESPN, sure, go ahead, have it. That's fine. 2 games on Monday Night Football, why? What are we doing? Why? There's no reason.
There's no reason. That's 100% correct.
Other than ESPN's gluttony. Like, that's it.
Yep. All right. Well, we're about to kick off here in Arizona. So we will say goodbye for the week. Remember, like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all this stuff. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. You see our Twitter handles up there. And, if you have any questions, please, put them in here, put them on X, put them wherever you're at. You can comment on here, obviously. Fred York saying hi. But, and we'll be back next week with another. I guess there's some big college games next week. I know one specifically.
Every week.
There's a big Thursday night game next week, San Francisco and Los Angeles. We talk about that, and there's another England game. So
yeah. Closing note: tomorrow at 7:08 a.m. in Long Island, New York, the Ryder Cup kicks off. And I know that I'm probably speaking to a wrong audience talking on a football show.
There's a lot of golf fans watching this tonight.
Boy, oh boy, did the Americans need this one. Like, you can't let the Europeans come in and beat you in New York, of all places. Like that, it can't happen. And you want to talk about electricity off the first tee? They have their two like lightning rods going for the Americans against the guys that like like they feel like the bad guys because both of them went to live in John Rahm and Terrell Hatton versus JT and Bryson DeChambeau. I know Bryson went to live too, but like the Americans need this one. They have to have this one because if you let the Euros get this one, I don't think you're ever gonna hear the end of it if you're an American.
We won the Junior Ryder Cup already. So this week we won 17.5 to 12.5. So let's go out and win the other one as well. Let's go USA.
I will have I should have a preview out on the Ryder Cup later this evening on Sports Talk Florida. So
all right. There we go. Check out Sports Talk Florida to see that and tease off tomorrow morning. Everyone will be watching. All right. We will see you again next week. Thanks for watching.